Today, I'm talking with Akeed Azmi, co-founder of Cercli, a MENA startup helping businesses manage payroll and global teams while staying compliant. Previously, Akeed worked at two regional unicorns, Careem and Kitopi, where he saw this problem twice before deciding to build Cercli and solve it. His ability to build strong relationships has helped Cercli raise an oversubscribed round, secure early customers, and hire great talent. Let's get started. First question is simple. What inspired you to really start Cercli? What was it?
So Cercli is the single modern platform for MENA businesses to hire, manage, and pay their global workforce, right? So we automate all of this manual back office work that happens, traditionally on spreadsheets, on WhatsApp, Slack, emails. So we automate your HR, onboarding, payroll, remote payrolls, and more to help you as a business reduce human error and stay fully compliant, right? Prior to this, I was at Kitopi where we'd raised, a ton of money, right? And then we were looking for a program to fix our company-wide payroll. And we were using, a mixture of spreadsheets, very clunky ERPs. And then this search is what led us to actually found Cercli. And we were like, hey, if Kitopi as well as Careem, where I was at before as well, were having these same issues, the two, most tech-forward companies, probably everybody else does as well. And this is where the whole, search for the platform came through. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. So basically you faced the problem twice. First in Careem, you saw the problem in Careem, but then again in Kitopi in front of you.
So the thing is, the interesting part here is at Careem, I was blissfully unaware, right? Okay. So the first place I went to when we actually came across this problem at Kitopi, right? And we were like, okay, hey, where can I go to see somebody else must have solved this problem? Let's go check it out. And then I called up folks at Careem, right? And we're like, hey, how did we solve this? And then we started basically peeling the layers, peeling the onion. And we're like, oh, wow, okay, there is issues there as well. And we were like, okay, I started talking to a bunch of different companies here. So I even ended up meeting during this discovery process of trying to figure out this problem. I ended up meeting Saudi Aramco, right, which is one of the largest companies in the world, one of the largest businesses in our region. And then all the way down to, these small kind of like bakalas, right, like in Karama. And we're like, to get a sense of how do people actually solve this problem, we're like, okay, it's a mixture of two things. It's a mixture of spreadsheets, basic HR systems that have been around for decades, which have not innovated at all, or very, very heavy legacy software like these ERPs that we talk about. And we're like, no one's doing it here. We're going to go ahead and solve this problem ourselves.
Interesting. And then follow-up question then, how did you start with your co-founder? Tell us a bit the story. How did you actually start towards your first MVP?
So the founding story of Cercli, let's see, it all moved very, very quickly. From the time we came across the problem, it was within, I think, a matter of a month or so. I had met my now co-founder, David, about 8 years back at Careem, actually. So we were first friends and we actually ended up launching one of Careem's first verticals together. So Careem Box. So I was always on the commercial growth operations side. He was on the product and engineering side. And this was the first vertical that we ended up launching at Careem, which, then became food deliveries. And then now there's groceries and, multiple different parts of the super app. So we ended up meeting there. So when I came across this problem, I ended up, calling him up at some point. I was like, listen, I think there's an issue here. Different people are having different ways of solving this and everybody has a problem with it. And then we started going down that rabbit hole together. And then, that's how I ended up, basically starting, finding David and then doing this together with him. In terms of building out our MVP, if you recall, I mentioned we spoke to about 30 companies, right? So most of those companies are now customers of ours. And the main thing for us was to build around customers, right? So we ended up spending a lot of time just doing customer discovery to figure out why are the other solutions out there not able to solve this problem sufficiently, right? And it essentially came across to three things. So the first thing was because they were a mixture of spreadsheets, there was human error, which means people were moving up data, manually themselves, which means there is a lot of privacy issues, there's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of data integrity. The second thing is that this gives rise to compliance problems, right? There's data protection. This is PII data that, with people's bank information, with salary information that just can get leaked, right?
Yeah.
And you need to also report this to the relevant statutory bodies. So the second thing was compliance. And the last thing was because our customers had to use multiple different systems, these systems did not speak to each other. And this meant that for your greatest asset, your people, you did not have a source of truth. And this is what, for us to get started, we spent a lot of time actually, going through the customer pain point to actually figure out, okay, hey, this is what we're going to build. This is how we're going to be different.
Clear. Interesting. Follow-up question on this. This is your first time founder. I know that on LinkedIn you had some other business as well, but in terms of tech startup, is it your first tech startup that you co-found?
Yes, exactly. So the way I think about this is like, if Careem was, a bachelor's program or an undergraduate program in startups, then when I ended up joining Kitopi, it was a bit more earlier stage. So it was like a postgraduate program, right? And both of them taught me different things, right? Which I'd say put me at least in a position to do what we're doing right now.
Clear. You answered a few other questions. I'll ask more deeper. I'll go deeper on them. But what I meant to say here is because I work with a lot of founders and I meet a lot of founders, and generally speaking, usually you wouldn't obsess that much about customers, about interviewing that much, being disciplined, really being centered. But I really saw it in you guys. We are also early investors when we met, Daria and I, and then we really support what you're doing. And we're actually, we see that you're using really good methods. So the question is, you just really were trained well. So you answered, I guess, you're really trained well with Careem, with Kitopi, within the same mindset, etc. This really helped, correct?
It's not just only that, right? Because at the end of the day, I would bring this back to our why, right? Our purpose. We're here to actually build something for our customers, right? At the end of the day, when I look at this, tech is a tool. Everything that you do is a tool for us to service our customers, right? And that customer centricity and that really that obsession over the customer pain point is what will make us unique, right? And so this is why we were like, hey, why are we going to, leave what we're doing right now? For me to leave Kitopi at that point and be like, yeah, this is what we want to go and build. It had to be something, lasting, something that we can build for the next 10, 15, 20 years, a problem that was big enough so that customers would be like, yeah, this is who I want to, work with. This is who I see, actually unlock that vision over the next decade plus or so. And it all starts from that customer pain point, from that customer journey.
It makes sense also, especially in your case, especially if you're trying to deliver a better product for existing needs, stuff like a new need.
And also, Samir, another thing, if I may, right? When we're dealing with payroll, with HR, this is very, very sensitive data, right? In a way, what we're actually building for is trust. It is that trust that, we're doing the right logic, we're building out the right flows, we're able to pay your colleagues, your team members compliantly without delays, without any issues, right? So this is why just being very, very close to our customers, especially because we're a B2B enterprise platform, it's the only way to kind of do it the way I see this.
Question again on how you started building your first MVP. So yes, okay, you got together with David, you convinced him, you got excited. Then what happened really? This is a story that's important for actual practical tips. We try to extract actual practical tips from having a solid job in a unicorn to really leaving, putting whatever you put on the line, and then delivering your first MVP and validating it. Tell us a little bit more, please, about what happened.
I would say, let me break it into 3 buckets then, right? So as I said, the first one was really just meeting, in that first 1 month, even when I was deciding to go and hey, is this a big enough problem, was meeting those many companies, right? 30, and it keeps continuing. Every week, every month we're still meeting new companies to refine that roadmap, right? So again, I would bring up that customer obsession, really understanding that pain point and becoming an expert in what you're solving and building for. The second thing that we did, given for us that we're building out a multi-product platform, right? We are very heavy on, let's say, R&D, so engineering talent. So as soon as we started understanding that customer pain point and we started laying out what does that roadmap look like, we started, recruiting for talent that could actually help, that we would start building out this product for, right? So that was the second thing that we started doing, was getting the talent in place.
Was this before or after fundraising?
Even before the first check came in, we were like, you know what, for me, I was like, okay, we'd already decided, hey, we're going to go and leave Kitopi at that point. And I'd already started having discussions with our first engineers that joined us, for our first customers as well. All of this happened before the fundraise, right?
Nice.
So in a sense, like for me, it was like, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this. Whatever happens with funding, we just knew that this problem was such a big enough problem that we're like, you know what? If we solve for this customer, we start taking the steps that we need towards building out this platform that, everything else will follow, right? And building a business that is solving a customer pain point is what will bring in any, seed round of funding or any follow-on rounds of funding.
So basically developed conviction enough, one, by speaking with all these customers and actually by implementing and by doing some actions and selling before even, that was your first thing. I just want to get enough conviction to go all in.
Exactly. We literally, like I said, during that discovery process, even while we were looking to hire, right? The first thing was, is it a big enough problem? How many companies are there? We started going through it. Then when that started becoming, a lot more clear, we were like, oh, hey, there's going to be, we need talent, really good talent that can build this, right? So for us, on average, we have about 11 plus years of engineering experience across the company.
So that's something for a young startup.
Yeah, for our stage, and we knew it, right? There is a reason why a lot of people have tried to do this before. Right now, we replace companies that have been around for a decade plus, as well, who've been trying to innovate in this space. And we knew that, hey, this starts with getting really smart people that understand our why, our customers, and what we're building, right? And because of that, we got this talent. We're then able to ship. Already right now, we have about 5 different products that we replace horizontally for our customers within the first year alone.
In 1 year, in the first year?
In the first year alone, yes. We've built out 5 different products already, yeah.
I can testify, by the way, because we're also clients, and then we see their releases as we speak. On this point then, what were the challenges? Because this seems all good and nice. What were the real challenges that you faced at the beginning?
I would say if we bring in challenges, right? Everyone says, and again for us, things were moving so quickly, we were like, hey, we're going to go ahead with this. And everyone always says, right, hire slow, fire fast. And again, we know there's so much to kind of build. But at the end of the day, I would say one of the biggest challenges was, at the early stage, and, coming from Careem Kitopi, was where we looked at these, let's say, pedigree brand logos initially, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this person was 7 years at, a FANG, or 5 years here. But the person who is really good at, a $1 trillion company, is not the same person that will be amazing at, a seed stage startup where it's full of chaos, right? So I always use this word, where there is chaos, there is opportunity. And there are very few people who are able to actually, thrive in that chaos and then make something out of it. So I would say that was one of the first challenges, removing that legacy hiring that we had in our heads of at these unicorns, this is the way we hired. To remove that, I would say that's number one.
Including your own personal experience, because you come from there.
Exactly. Exactly. So we had to detach from all of this, right? I would say that was one challenge, and it was something that I keep, bringing back to now. So now we have a very, very, I would say, structured process when it comes to hiring. We do what we call an alignment document as well, where we go through it's a journal between, myself and the candidate, where we talk about their why, for us to figure out, is there really alignment, to understand, is this the best place for them? And then secondly, folks meet nearly everybody else, as many as they can within the company, right? So that they also get a flavor of who we are and why did each person join us and take that leap of faith as well. So I would say that was the first challenge. The second challenge is something that is always interesting when I look back now. I fundamentally still believe, we could have launched earlier than we actually did. It's about understanding that, you don't need things to be, perfect. You always feel like, if I do this, it can be a much better launch. Or, you know, it's about really understanding what that MVP is. Or in our case, what we call is a minimum valuable product. Because, our customers know what the pain point is. And we're trying to figure out what product or what set of products would make the customer be like, oh, yes, this solves my pain point. Let me go ahead. And can we actually find a way to de-scope what that looks like for the customer instead of, over-engineering things in our minds without, any reason whatsoever.
This was a challenge, why? Because you believe it really slowed you down, you lost a few months because You weren't more maybe critical?
I wouldn't say it was a few months. It was just now that, for a startup, momentum and speed is everything. We're very excited with what we've been doing in just a short time within that year. But I still believe we could have, been a lot faster.
Yeah.
And this is something we keep doing. Like, hey, can we prioritize diligently to build what is best for our customer?
And it's always a challenge because also you have multiple types of customers, I believe, like as you grow.
Exactly.
Help us, for someone who has done both Careem and Kitopi, what are the similarities and what are really the differences in these two companies from your perspective, from your point of view and your experience? Like if you have reflected on this.
In one sense, for me, there was a very natural progression, if you think about it, from Careem to Kitopi, because...
From Careem food also, on top of it.
Yeah, because in general, we had so when I left Careem, right, it was just after the Uber acquisition, we had launched the super app, and then, we were doing food delivery was booming, and I had actually wanted to launch cloud kitchens, right? So this is something that I really was excited about at that moment. And in a way, it made so much sense that Kitopi was a very natural progression, given what Kitopi is doing in the cloud kitchen space. I would say at Careem, it was both of the companies were very heavy on, let's say, understanding that let's say that speed to execute, like launching something very quickly from a operational perspective, and then building the technology and the platform that you needed to actually scale that around it, right? So I think in that way, it was quite similar. But in ways that it was different is because as Careem is, a marketplace, a platform, whereas Kitopi is a very, it has the brick and mortar infrastructure that you have. Like right now at Kitopi, we have more than, close to 300 locations across the region. Some of the, instances that you would come across would be like, I remember the first time we were launching a market at Kitopi, we would have to go into that market and then find locations to build out kitchens. Whereas at Careem, it was, a very different way of launching a market. It was a lot more to do with the software, like I would say.
And then what didn't you like about each?
Oh, wow. For me, both of those places have been fundamentally amazing to what we're doing over here. Oh, that's an interesting one. Now that I think about it.
It's like an open message on your honest take. Like what would be something you would change or you do differently, obviously. You stayed a long time, so you're loyal. It's obvious. You're saying how much you learned there.
I'm still very close. I still say we, for both the
I know.
places that we've been at.
That's also because of the equity. I'm pretty sure you have some equity left.
Yeah. Let's see. I think the one thing, and again, I guess this is, the nature of, when you become a larger company, right? Like, I guess towards, the time when we were leaving, let's say at Careem, right? You become a large company, right? And I'll say something that we're also trying to, figure out is like, how do you still keep that sense of purpose, that sense of culture, those values when you're a 2,000 person company, right? So this is something that I think, like if you meet folks even now, folks that were at Careem like 5 years ago, 10, ages back, there is something that binds you. And for us, the thing is like, okay, how can we, keep doing that even as we start scaling, right? So I would say this is one thing that I would look to, see from Careem. I would say, let's see, at Kitopi, how did I think of it? Yeah, you never look at it, right? Like, when something is so close to you, you never look at anything. You're like, no.
Why bother? Why would you? Exactly.
Yeah. You don't really think of it in that sense.
What's one wish for them? Like I know you like them and again, you probably have interest and all. What's one thing you would wish?
I wish for, like, honestly, right? Like at Kitopi, we've built something truly magnificent, and I'm excited for, what does that next chapter look like, right? As we look at what are the potential IPO plans, so that we also are able to create a opportunity for everyone at Kitopi, the customers and investors, and everyone to then take that growth, just like what we saw at Careem, to actually then go and start building their own companies, right? So I'm excited for that. I would say the chapter 2 at Kitopi that would hopefully be with us soon.
Cool. This ends the first part of the interview. The second part is about also something maybe unique, or at least like you do very well. The unique part is I think you are a very social person and founder, and I would like to know how this really has helped you also build the company and co-found your startup. I want to tie it also with, in general, your round of investment. How have you invested? How have you raised your round? And especially, how did you apply for YC and secured it? and got accepted, etc. So it's more about that part.
In general, right? I don't per se, I'm not a big fan. You would have seen, like, I'm not a fan of events, of conferences, of panels.
Yeah.
So in general, for me, it was like, hey, if you do something worthwhile, everything else comes from it, right? Like, and I would say at Careem, it was, doing what we had to do, building out Careem Box. Then, as we started scaling that, and then, doing food delivery, and then heading operations for our markets, I think that generally, when you go and, you're able to prove something and add value to customers, to other people around you, I think that creates a sort of, let's say, network effect. I enjoy I guess, being around people in general, and I think, and people that I resonate with, right? And again, I heavily lean on towards, values, because if there are people that the values of someone that doesn't resonate with me personally, I politely detach myself from that. So I think
That's very smart, by the way.
Exactly. Having amazing people around me has been quite crucial to this, right? Because even when we look at our first customers, when we look at our first hires, right? They were all folks from our ecosystem, people that we knew, that because of the way the people that that were close to us, these were the first people that we reached out to. Again, like David is a great example, right? Like, we were first friends. I know his wife. We met like before he was, when they were still, dating.
Yeah.
And actually, even during that process of, I spoke to David's wife, convinced her as well, right? So these are the things, because at the end of the day, he was also super excited to do this together, right? And then the same way we went and then got our first hires, right? From everyone that we brought on board has been, kind of like having this talent vortex, right? Or this multiplier effect. Like, get an amazing person that aligns with your values, they bring in 2-3 more people, 2-3 more people. And this is the same way we deal with hiring, the same way we deal with customers, and also with, I think you kind of alluded to it, is with investors.
So the second question is, I don't know if you want to talk first about how you closed the round in general fully, or if you want to discuss YC. I would like to discuss YC separately also, just because like best practices, things you can advise other founders trying to get accepted,
Sure.
if this is what they wanted, etc.
Sure.
So one is more about the network that you amassed and the angel investors, and the other is about YC.
Yeah. So again, the network came from, I guess, being, like I said, creating that value at the right place. So at Careem, then at Kitopi, and then doing something that is impactful for customers, right? So every time throughout that, I remember even now the way we ended up launching, the food delivery arm for Careem. That is what ended up, coming to Kitopi, because it was very adjacent to food delivery, right? And then when we were leaving, it was basically the network that we had from there, like being able to, call up 5-10 people and like, hey, do you have an issue running payroll? How do you do it? How do you manage XYZ? And then someone would be like, oh yeah, no, I don't know how to do it. I can introduce you to 2-3 other people, right? There was this concept, a friend of mine coined up called social capital. And at the end of the day, if you're not an asshole and you're someone that is genuinely interested in other people, I think people are always there to help, right?
Yep.
And ask for that help. So this is literally what we ended up doing. Like for me, when we needed to get an intro to someone, I check on LinkedIn, hey, do they know someone? I'll be like, hey, do you think we could get an intro to this person? Do you think we could, do you know this person? Do you know if they're interested? We would love to see if, they're a potential candidate for us in the hiring process, right? So I think it's mainly around, just asking for help and, genuinely trying to be a nice person, right? And for us, again, I bring this back to, what guides our values and our core behaviors, right? And we do our best to exemplify everything that we have over there.
Is this part of your culture? Like, I really see it a bit more unique with when I talk with you in general, and like now that you expand more on it, is that maybe for you it's a given, maybe that's how you were raised, but like not everyone uses it as a strategy or benefits from it that much, really. So I think part of your answer was that it's the history. So I built these relations for the past 8 years, maybe, or whatever the number of years was. It wasn't instant. It's not like I needed to fundraise. Yeah. So I went and started talking to people. It was like, I've generally enjoyed being nice person, helpful, and like, always been nice, leave things on a good note. And then eventually, okay, I needed something. And if people are not assholes, if I'm not, then potentially they would help. So it's both like asking, but also like in general being a good person and having good history with people around you.
No, 100%, right? Like for me, I think not even the last like 10 years, like even before this, right? I'm someone who always, I wear my heart on my sleeves. Even the way, like I mentioned, the way I joined Careem was for, my mentor of mine, right? Like it was like, hey, I'm joining. Don't go anywhere. You should join here at some point, right? And I was like, okay. Because at the end of the day, I think, great people, empathetic people will always, find a way to make it work. And I never had like, I would say ulterior motives. Oh, I need to, know this person because at some point I'm going to ask for a favor, right?
Yep.
It's never like that. Like I said, that it was genuinely, if there was someone that aligned with my values personally, I enjoyed having a time, and it was a genuine friendship, right? It was a genuine friendship. It was a genuine way of getting to know this person. And I'm sure even if we didn't start the company, these are people that I would still be in touch with for the next 10, 20, 30 years, regardless, because I genuinely enjoy who they are and, spending time with them.
I think you do this very proactively and nicely, and it has helped you. I hope it keeps on helping you that much. Not everyone does it that proactively. That's my only comment.
I until you brought it up, I didn't think of it, let's say in this lens, but it's something good to know. Maybe that I think about it. It's something good to reflect on now that you're saying. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the awesome people that we have around us, our customers, our colleagues, our investors, and my friends that keep, at the end of the day, our family and friends that keep us grounded.
Tell me more about your round. Let's start with, okay, so basically, why did you want to raise for many angels in general, or did it just happen because you got oversubscribed? How did it work? I know that you got plenty of people on the cap table and angels, and also I know that you raised from YC. So we'll discuss both.
Fundraising in this case was not, there was no plan around it, right? Again, as I mentioned, it was around, hey, it moved coincidentally very quickly while we were, figuring out the customer pain point. And again, I keep bringing it to customer pain point and becoming an expert on that. We just kept moving on that. And we have a mixture of investors, from Silicon Valley, which is a fork, and YC, and then locally, Amir Farha's Kotu Ventures, as well as, angels from Silicon Valley and local MENA operators as well. So when it came to it, we didn't really think of that whole process there. We were excited to see investors that believe in, the problem and the region. And they did their own due diligence, and it basically became a full round then and there itself. I would say on the application to YC, it was because of one of our angels, who's also a YC founder, who recommended that we put in an application, and the rest was history, honestly.
But okay, so on YC specifically, you got the best advice maybe to go and do that back then. And how did you apply? Did you ask for more help? Did you try to did you play to win, or you just applied and we see how it goes? Did you maximize your chances? We would like to really understand. There are a lot of people who have never applied and might be considering applying.
I think the biggest thing, at least for us on the YC application, right, was at that moment we were like, okay, hey, if we're going to go apply, I think the 2-3 biggest things is number one, for us, even now when I looked at, if I were to go back through our YC application, was again, this focus on the customer, right? It was very clear. I had gone through that whole list of customers, and our problem statement was very clear. Even now, from a year ago to when we, I would say, applied, and it's not even just the YC application, even in general, it was, our general fundraise, because we put it all together, was very much focused on the customer, and our vision was very clear from then. Now, when we look at it, we've built 10 times more, we have 10 times more conviction where we thought we would be. So that is just incredible to see where that is. And I think that was the first thing, is focusing on that customer pain point again. The second thing was being very succinct on the application as well. The YC application, I think, is quite an interesting tool for someone who's maybe looking to start a company. Just the questionnaire itself, it helps you think through certain, problem statements. Some of them is, how would you explain your company in 50 characters or less, right? It really helps you refine what matters and what doesn't matter. And then the third thing is, to have the thing, it doesn't matter, an investor at the end of the day, is fuel for you to build the business. So whether an investor says yes or whether an investor says no, you just keep moving forward, right? And for us, we just did what we had to do, and we kept building the business, and everything else was a byproduct of just going ahead relentlessly and just going and just building for our customers.
So advice is yes, while you got in, and we'll talk maybe later about what you learned from YC. But in Jair, it wasn't like we have to do it. We will try our best. But in Jair, we just want to fundraise and we care about our company.
Like honestly, the YC application, I still remember it was like a Friday night. I remember, like I told you, one of our angels like, oh yeah, you should definitely, just apply. And I just did it in like a matter of an hour, right? It was just a quick, or like a 1 hour thing. Because again, as I said,
it was already like you were ready.
We knew exactly what this is what we're building, this is what we're doing. Because again, I bring it back to spending those the 2-3 weeks before that focusing on the customer.
You were ready. You're at the right time, basically. You were really at the right time.
Exactly that. We were focusing on the customer. So each question was just like boom, 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 boom. It just answered everything. And I still remember it was like Friday, like a Friday night. So Saturday, actually. So Saturday at like 2-3 a.m. in the morning, I remember we just clicked apply. And then I believe we got an interview. And then literally after the interview, I still remember at like 2-3 a.m. on a Monday, our group partner called us and was like, hey, we'd love to have you guys in the batch. And the rest was history. But again, what I bring it back to is we just focused a lot. We didn't try to game the system. Like I said, for us,
you were doing the right thing. It seemed you were really doing the right thing.
We didn't try to, act like this or do something like that. Even in the interview, which is very like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're building, and this is how we're going about it, right? We were just focusing again on the customer.
And how was the interview, by the way? Was it 15 minutes? Was it longer? How was it in January? Was it nice, fun?
So the YC interview is a short 10-minute interview. We had a couple of questions from, our partners who we're very close to. We had a couple of questions as well, on, how we would benefit from, YC coming on board as an investor as well. And yeah, it's very quick. It's very short. Like I said, 10 minutes is more than enough to get a sense of, at this stage of someone, of the pain point of, of what they're solving for.
What did you really appreciate the most out of this experience with YC, with the program, etc.? What were really good things that happened?
If you asked me this a year ago to now, it's changed. Because we were the first batch that was fully in person. So I remember we were flying into San Francisco, David and I, and we thought, hey, we're only going for 2 weeks, right? And then when we get there, we find out that no, everything is now in person, which honestly was the biggest, I would say, benefit now
Positive
when I
surprise.
look back at it. Exactly. Because for us, we're building for the region, we're building for our customers here, right? So again, as you can tell, like, we spend a lot of time around our customers. So, being half a world away was like absurd. Like we just didn't understand it. But I still remember Gary Tan, right? Who's the president of YC. Yeah. I remember we were catching up at the retreat and he was like, trust me, he's like 10 years later, this will all be worth it, right? And I can already tell you it's been worth it. Those 3.5 months while you were spent there, the biggest thing that comes out of it was number one was actually the founders in your batch. And in MENA, and we want to be a part of that change as well, is, there's this founder network of folks who are at the same stage, right? Can you help each other? Are you there for each other? Are you going through the same problems? Can you help each other? And there is some way to go, and we want to be a part of, that change here as well. We're fortunate that we have, founders around us, the likes of Careem and Kitopi to call, and then be like, hey, I have this issue, right? But it always helps when you have founders who are at the same stage as you. So this, having, your founders in the YC batch was, I would say, one of the biggest benefits of doing the program itself.
You see, again, how social you are. Again, back to this is the best asset you got. Not the program, not specifically some... You are taking the value like that. This is the best value you took. Maybe someone else, you know what I mean?
No, exactly. Because at the end of the day, right, like no one knows how to build the company. Otherwise, they would be building your company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're the founder for a reason. You're building this company for a reason. It is your role. It is what you have signed up to do, right? And if you spend your time with customers, they will tell you what to do. This is literally how we run. So for me, personally, was the value of YC that batch during at that point came from, hey, the network, the batch from our current batch of founders, right? Like we were all going through the same issues. Oh, how do we scale this? How were you going through your first hire? And each of us learn from each other, right? And this is what we have even here, right? Like, I'd call up some of our MENA founders here, not even YC, like, and we're lucky, I would say, we're lucky to have, let's say, the network of being in tech so that we can do it.
Yeah.
So that was something I would say that was amazing in the batch itself. And now, there's some of my closest friends. I was literally in San Francisco like 3 weeks ago as well. It was amazing to see everyone. I would say the second thing is, this relentless focus on launching something. So I think that would be like, honestly, the biggest benefit here. The second thing with YC was the some of the angels we met through that, right? Because the YC ecosystem has, for example, you have, YC is backed, from the likes of Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox. So through that network of, a couple of thousand founders, you're probably just one email or a, Slack message away to getting to talk to someone and really go through, hey, you've built this in this market or you're building this here. How did you solve, XYZ issue, right? And this was another big, I would say, unlock so that we can, I would say, take how somebody else has fixed something and then localize it to, our problem or our region, right? I would say these are the two biggest, I would say, benefits that came from the program. At least at this stage, there's tons more, but these are the two most, I would say, top of mind ones.
Yep. You also mentioned, just to also iterate, you also mentioned like the discipline of shipping fast and like delivering and always delivering.
So this is something we pride ourselves on anyway. Like I said, it's a part of the values, but it always helps, right? When you're within the batch, you're around so the way it works is you're in about, you're in a small group at some point of about 15 companies, which is called a section. And you meet every week, right? And you basically, kind of say, hey, listen, this is what I'm going to do next week. And you give a goal and then you go next week and you do it, right?
And you show up and you show it. Exactly. You have to show up. And
you basically, it's a interesting way of holding yourself accountable in front of others who technically are building their own company, but it's quite interesting. And we actually now take that and we do demo day every week at Cercli as well. So every Friday, we all do demo day every week. Like, hey, this is what we said we would do. This is what each of us do. So we were like, so even myself, I'm like, oh, hey, this is my top 3 things that I said I would, accomplish. This is where I landed, and I hold myself accountable to everybody else, right?
Wow, that's very interesting. You do it across all departments, so not just product or tech?
Yeah. Okay. So, no. So all of us do it because at the end of the day, each of us has top 2-3 things that we really need to figure out for that week. And we keep using that, one, to hold ourselves accountable, to also be transparent across the company as well, and to keep having that, let's say, that value of leveraging momentum, that sense of urgency, right? To keep doing something quicker, faster. How can we solve our customers' problem in the best way possible?
Very good. You said customers like 300 times, which is great. It's like, it's like this is how obsessed you are. The third part is about exactly that. So like how you're building, how today and the future for Cercli looks like. So what are you doing? I'll ask some questions also here. And also you can hear, feel free to share anything that you're building, or if you have a shout out, or if you have anything that you also want to ask the community. I'll ask the first question, which is, what makes your product different, or what will it make different as you build and continue?
The first thing that we do is where we replace multiple isolated, disconnected systems for our customers, right? Customers right now, right? Like sometimes just to have, to manage their employees or their team members across, the UAE have to use system A. To manage their remote teams, need to use system B. To do, their payroll, need to use system C, right? So for us, we remove these isolated systems in one platform for our customers, right?
You're the only one in the market offering this. This is basically in terms of, you're the first and only.
Yes, this was the biggest insight that we had for our customers, right? And we were using, at the start when we started as well, we were using 2-3 different systems.
Of course.
And now, obviously we use ourselves.
So there's no better alternative even. Like not only you're different, but there's no better alternative in the region.
Yeah.
Okay, clear.
Unless you want to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yes, yeah. Unless you want to, of course.
Unless you want to do it yourself through spreadsheets.
Unless you enjoy errors and being slow and and everything in between. Great.
So I would say that is number one. The second thing is by being able to, actually, like I said, within a year, we're replacing systems that have, been around for a bunch of 5 years to 10 years, right? What we're doing here is like really, really, again, focusing on that customer and designing and localizing for MENA businesses, right?
Yeah.
So there is this localization aspect where some of the global companies might do something, but at the end of the day, they don't have the local know-how. And this is where there's a lot of, let's say, these data integrity issues, right? Like, for example, they don't understand that, hey, if you're expat living in Saudi, that you need a 10-digit Iqama number, right? So they have no idea how that takes into account with payroll. So this is what we really do. We bring in all of that for MENA companies to kind of remove all of that headache. And basically from our platform, from our service, from the product, to make you as a customer not think. Like you should be focused on everything front of house. Like we will fix all of that, back office nonsense that happens for you.
What type of customers are the best fit for you right now, let's say?
We work right now, we have companies all the way from, let's say, 2 team members on the platform, all the way to like 500 plus, right? So we're in this segment of mid-market enterprises where we're able to, automate all of these different systems that replace all of these different systems that I mentioned for you.
Yes.
And automate some of these processes for them.
And this is across like in MENA in general, or do you have specific countries that you're focusing on in terms of HQ?
Right now, our customers are headquartered out of the UAE and Saudi, primarily out of the UAE and Saudi, but then we pay into like last month, close to about 37 countries. So from someone in the US all the way to people in Australia. We do have that as well.
Do you think you're already product market fit? How do you know?
The way we go about that is I honestly don't think of product market fit, right? Again, we're just like, hey, are we growing 20% month on month, right? Are we building for customers? Are there customers with pain points, right? And do we keep solving for it? For us, have we hit product market fit? I don't know. And honestly, it's not something I've even, thought about. We're just like, hey, are we growing 20-25% month on month? Are we shipping every month? And you get our product updates every month as well on the Slack channel. And then publicly, we share it to everybody else. Are we holding ourselves accountable for what we're doing? Because at the end of the day, we're doing this for our customers, for ourselves. If we keep doing that, everything else will be an outcome of, of doing good work, I guess, and having a high quality bar for what you do.
Not clear answer, clear reasoning. Because I don't know, like I don't know how each startup does it, right? I mean, I believe you are. The problem exists. You're not inventing. You're just doing a much better solution, I believe. But the solution has been provided through multiple sources, sheets, etc. You're just building a very good way to do it.
So if you think about it, right, like our space per se is a very, very fragmented space, right? Like let me give you a little bit of maybe to geek out a little bit, right, on the space itself. If you take the US, right? Yeah. So there is a 70-year-old company called ADP, right? Which is after 70 years is about 13-14% of market share in the US. It is a Fortune 500 company. It does $18 billion in annual recurring revenue. And it's only, like I said, 13-14% of market share. Yeah. Decacons, who are also backed by YC, like, Deal, Rippling, Gusto, are like been around again. The Decacons, they have less than probably 1% market share in the US. Right, it's a very, very fragmented market just because of, legacy systems that have been around. And there is a fundamental way in the region as well to replace some of these very, very fragmented players that are doing one thing, two things okay, but not doing, a bunch of different things really well, right? And for us, what does that mean? Someone needs to be able to, take on this broad, let's say this vision of building something truly big, right? And for that, you need, let's say, investors that believe in that big vision that, hey, this team is going to be able to go and build all of this out quickly and replace these different systems. The second thing is, are you able to actually attract that type of talent, right? Because it's a very hairy problem. And for us, this is where we've spent a lot of time until like 2 months ago. It was just me, and everybody else is across, product and engineering and design, right? Like it was just me doing everything else. We just hired our first, SDR because we were building out so much, right? And the third thing is customers that actually have these pain points, which obviously this is why we're building what we're building is, even now when we go to meet some companies, they're like, oh, hey, I know you do this, but have you looked at this, right? And we're like, yeah, we kind of see that natural tendency, and we're like, hey, we're just mainly sequencing what does those product modules, those product SKUs look like over time.
Do you think you're missing a feature where this is where it becomes a no-brainer for any company, dinosaurs or early adopters, where, it'd make it much more easier for them to transition?
I think those are very different customer segments. Again, if you see, I obsess over this customer type. So as I said, there is a dinosaur who, if we talk about it as large enterprises, anybody above 1,500 employees have problems. Even recently, we met a company that migrated to SAP, right? That migrated to SAP. And then a bunch of different things don't work for them, right? Because it's a huge, clunky 50, 60-year-old company that is there, that is not localized again, for what we're doing, right? Very different customer. And then you might have, the 5-person company, in Cairo that, has a very different set of needs, right? And then you have, like I mentioned, our mid-market enterprise company, which, has a different set of needs. So we don't mix these, right? Again, the only exception for those small companies that I spoke about are startups, right? Because they want our help. They don't want to have to think about all of this. They're like, hey, listen, guys, we want you to figure out all of this stuff. We're going to, we need to ship fast. We need to build our company, right? Those are the only exceptions for us. Otherwise, we focus on our mid-market enterprise companies over there. And we're seeing it, right? Like right now we replace for our customers 2-3 different systems, and they're like, oh, hey, why does this make sense? Because your accounting is now streamlined. Your reconciliation for your bookkeeping is streamlined.
Yep.
Your reporting is streamlined because you don't have 3-4 different systems. Let's say someone needed to, take some time off. They were on one system and the other person is on a different system. How do you make these systems talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we're bringing, and it's a very natural, I would say, progression for companies as they start saying, okay, we actually need this for our business.
What are your biggest, as you grow, what are your biggest scaling challenges currently?
As we grow, our biggest challenges is, something that we're, solving as we keep going is, I would say the challenge for me as well, right? Is as we're growing every single month, there are things where like, oh, wow, we now it's time to actually go and, open up a role to go and hire for this pain point that we're facing, because now it's a big enough problem for us to go and look at it, right? And we recently just, opened up a position for a marketing and content lead, right? So it's about, maybe having, understanding maybe 3 months ahead. Okay, this is where we're going to be and building for that. But again, it's the nature of, I guess, an early stage startup, right? Like we saw this at Careem, I saw this at Kitopi,
Yes.
and we're seeing it here as well.
So basically, it's like you cannot be you cannot plan super well in advance. There's no way you're gonna predict all of these. But this is kind of the challenge itself. So like, I wish I knew I could have did this earlier.
Exactly. So for me, I spend a big part of my time trying to foresee where we would be in the next 30 to 60 days. Like, because for us, we work in like days, right? Like I said, we have this demo day every week. We work in days. Like things change so much. So like if I look at what happened 3 months ago to now, so there is no quarterly planning and nothing in that sense. We're looking at, hey, the next 30 to 60 days, what is going to be our biggest blocker? What is going to be our biggest unlock? And we plan for that and we just keep moving.
And what about your growth strategy? Do you have like a specific growth strategy, or you're building now, or like, tell us a little more about your plans to grow?
We've been growing, through referrals, through, our outbound strategies. As I mentioned, until 2 months ago, like literally, I guess I was the outbound strategy for us.
Yes. Yes.
So we're hiring, we're beefing up our SDR team. So our sales team over there, we're hiring for our, as I mentioned, our marketing and content team as well here, for us to become essentially, create this thought leadership around what we're building, around what we're doing right now. So for our customers to also understand, hey, there is a better way to do it. And this is how we're doing it differently.
Clear. So educational and outbound sales-led, I believe, since you're enterprise.
It might be different for different people, but for us, this is what we're seeing. Where there's a lot of word of mouth in general. We, like I said, we have, we're very close to our customers. So we're grateful for our customers who, refer us to different people. And that's amazing to have. For us, that's a sign of, we're doing something. And we're excited by having customers that love us.
Will you be still running sales? Like, will you build a team and you'll still be in charge of sales for the foreseeable future?
So all of us, we do customer support. Okay. We do, customer success, everything. the way we are building the organization is built around, having this very clear line into the customer, because then we're able to iterate on the platform, on the product, on the service quicker. We're able to even design the product in a much more intuitive manner, right? So as far as I can tell, we're very close to our customer here. So I don't see me, delegating that to somebody else just like that. We will again prioritize these things accordingly, and have people that come in that are empowered to kind of do what needs to be done. But we will still be very close to our customer in any way that's possible.
Do you have any roles you're hiring for besides what you mentioned, like since you're discussing expansion and possible people to join the mission?
No, definitely. So we're always hiring for engineers. So back-end engineers, front-end engineers. This is, I would say...
With an average of 11 years of experience or less? How is it looking now?
Across. So for now, we don't mind. So honestly, one of our colleagues as well who is there right now, he joined fresh out of college, right? He did a 3-month internship with us. And now, he's contributed so much to the product, to the platform, right? He started off with us in India, then he ended up moving to our Dubai office as well. So it's across the board. And by the way, even with him, when you divide the engineering years of experience by the number of people, we have 11. So even with someone, who is fresh out of college. So for us, we're hiring regardless of your seniority, as long as, like I said, you're hungry, you think like an entrepreneur, you want to ship fast. You see the table behind me, like everybody has a seat at the table, right? So you can literally, as an engineer, be that painter. You could actually come and have immediate impact in the first a couple of weeks, right? You could ship something that all of our customers would use. So we're hiring for engineers. Then, as I said, we're beefing up across the other roles as well. So we're looking for folks in business operations. We're looking for folks in payroll and compliance, marketing and content, and also, as I mentioned, for sales roles as well.
Anything else? What's your plans for Cercli? Anything we'd like to share with the audience?
So right now, what we're doing is we're just, like I said, again, very close to our customers here. And if you have anyone that could, benefit from what we do, a company, a mid-market company that wants to, go through the better way of, managing their workforce, we're here for them.
I second that. And thank you so much, Akeed. This was an amazing interview. Thank you for being honest and open. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and we'll talk very soon.
Yes, I did. Thank you so much for having me. If there's anything else, do let me know.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Cheers.